leave a mark. We're done hiding in.
Welcome to the Disability Granted channel. This is part 2 of Broken System. It began with the story of Alan Chrisman, a 59-year-old stonemason who was wrongfully denied Social Security disability. He was denied although he suffered inoperable late-stage intestinal cancer. Mr. Chrisman's medical treatment included irradiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. The surgery had removed a foot of his intestine and a golf ball-sized tumor. They found 2 spots on his lungs. And 6 months passed after his application. Applied for Social Security disability. It's the first thing you do. You can't work, you're deadly sick. Apply for Social Security disability. Well, he did apply, and 6 months passed without any medical or financial disability assistance from Social Security. 6 months passed before he received in the mail a letter from Social Security disability. Yeah, his wife checked the mail every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, to see if Social Security had approved her husband's claim. 6 months passed before she received a letter from Social Security. She opened it and she read it to her husband. And it told desperately ill Alan Chrisman, although your therapy is currently causing you discomfort, it's expected that these effects will be temporary. Yeah. Well, Mr. Chrisman's therapy was chemotherapy, and his cancer had metastasized to his lungs. It was inoperable. Perhaps what was temporary was his life. What are these people thinking? The Tennessean Newspaper and USA Today investigated how could Social Security deny Mr. Chrisman benefits from SSDI. After all, SSDI was the federal safety net program that he'd contributed to with every paycheck during his 30 years working as a stonemason. SSDI isn't funded by tax dollars. SSDI isn't paid from the public purse. SSDI is paid from workers' payroll deductions, which go into a trust specifically reserved for Social Security disability. So when you hear all these people complaining how all these disabled people, they're getting paid out of the public purse. It's ridiculous they complain about that to begin with, because disabled people need help. And don't we want our brothers and sisters, when they're disabled, don't we want them to have help? And isn't America the most affluent country in the world? Can't we afford to help our disabled? Are we going to crybaby about it? Oh, it's coming from the public purse, and make those little false tears and cries, knowing that SSDI is paid from a trust fund from which workers contributed. SSI is welfare, it's disability, it's welfare, and disabled people can get SSI. Seniors age 65 and older can get SSI. And children, disabled children, can get SSI. We don't want the public purse to pay for disabled children. Yeah, well, that's a great country we have then. Don't tolerate people like that. Their 5-year investigation focused on Dr. Thomas E. Thrush, Dr. Thrush was a contractor. He contracted with Disability Determination Services, DDS, to be a medical consultant. Dr. Thrush was a member of the disability examiner's team that denied Mr. Chrisman's disability. Let me make something clear so as to avoid confusion. Most people, when they read the investigation, they think that the evil doctor is the one that examined Mr. Chrisman. No doctor examined Mr. Chrisman. No doctor for Social Security examined Mr. Chrisman. Had there been a consultative examination, I don't think all of this mess would have happened. I think that the consultative examiner would have made sure that they had enough medical records for him to do his or her duty, which would be to do an examination. The consultative examiners are only brought in if the medical record is incomplete or if there's a medical issue that needs to be resolved in order to determine the claim. No, Dr. Thrush was not a consultative examiner. He was a medical consultant. Fearmongers. The fearmongers portray consultative examiners as these villains who are hired by Social Security to do phony examinations that deny disability to people and keep them from getting Social Security disability. Well, that's a topic for another video. I disagree with the fearmongers, and I suggest that you watch YouTube videos by a Social Security disability examiner. Dr. J. Dave Foster. He does consultative examinations for Social Security. There's a link below to his channel, as well as to one of his videos, Win Your Case, Answer These 2 Questions. Make your own opinion. Dr. Thrush, as I said, was not a medical examiner. He never examined Mr. Chrisman. He was a medical consultant. He reviewed medical records, or at least that was his job. The investigation found that Dr. Thrush failed to obtain one critical piece of evidence. He failed to obtain a discharge report from the treating hospital, which stated that Mr. Chrisman's cancer was inoperable and had metastasized. Yeah, I guess that report would have been handy. The investigation correctly determined that the prognosis clearly qualified Mr. Chrisman for disability, even under what the investigators called the complex rules set by the Social Security Administration. We're trying to make those rules a little bit less complex with this report. But why investigate Dr. Thrush? He was only a medical consultant. It wasn't his job to deny Mr. Chrisman's claim. He had no authority to deny Mr. Chrisman's disability claim. Ultimately, that was the job of the disability examiner. And that disability examiner, whoever it was, he or she, got a pass by the investigators. They focused on Dr. Thrush. Why? Dr. Thrush was part of a team that determined Mr. Chrisman's disability. Social Security tells us about that team. The determination, this is what Social Security tells us. Social Security has a manual. Yeah, you can go by the book because they actually have a manual. It's online. You can access it. And it's very good. If there are any references made, there are links to it. You don't have to go searching for them. You just click a link and it'll take you to Code of Federal Regulations or another rule or a blog or some other authority. So that's available for you. The determination as to whether a claimant is disabled is made for the Social Security Administration by a team composed of a physician and a disability examiner working in the Disability Determination Services, DDS. Typically, the physician maintains a private practice in addition to serving as a member of the team responsible for making the disability determination. There's a link provided below from Social Security, Medical Professional Relations, who determines whether a person is disabled. There's your answer. See link below. It was the disability examiner's job to get Mr. Chrisman's medical record. That's the first duty of the medical examiner. The first thing they're supposed to do is get the medical record. It's not the medical consultant's duty to get the medical record. The medical consultant reviews the medical record. It wasn't Dr. Thrush's duty to complete the medical record, although he did have authority to do so. If the medical record was incomplete, Dr. Thrush had a duty to notify the disability examiner so that the examiner could complete the medical record from which the issue of disability could be determined. That's what the manual says, going by the book. So what were Dr. Thrush's duties? Well, we know he's supposed to review the medical record. Okay. As medical consultant, he's supposed to do a medical record review. In this case, he was supposed to review Alan Chrisman's medical record. And if the medical record was incomplete, he had a duty to notify the disability examiner. But the medical record was never completed. The disability examiner may not have known the medical record was incomplete, though I sort of doubt it, judging from that snarky disability notice. What medical records could you gather that from? It's ridiculous. Dr. Thrush had an important duty. Once the medical record was completed, he was responsible for reviewing the medical record to determine whether it supported a finding of disability under the adult listing of impairments. In this case, listings 13.17 or 13.18, intestinal cancer. However, the medical record was incomplete, if it existed at all. I don't even know if the medical record existed. I don't know if they had a single medical record of any kind. I don't know. But we certainly know they didn't have a complete medical record. And as a medical consultant, Dr. Thrush could have obtained those records. Yeah, he didn't have a duty to obtain them, but he had authority to obtain those medical records himself. He didn't have to rely on the disability examiner. Dr. Thrush could have contacted Mr. Chrisman or his doctors, but he didn't do so. Why not? Why didn't Dr. Thrush inform the disability examiner that they had insufficient medical information to make a disability determination? Was it because getting more records would take more than 12 minutes? 12 minutes. Where did that come from, 12 minutes? Well, we're going to find out. Instead, Dr. Thrush improperly offered a recommendation with an incomplete medical record. Yeah. How does that work? How does a medical consultant determine his or her recommendation? Remember, Dr. Thrush was blamed for his recommendation, which resulted in a botched determination. That's words that they used. Well, Social Security's Program Operations Manual says the medical consultant's recommendation is based on whether the medical record supported a finding of disability in the listing of adult impairments. That's what we just told you. The manual required him to have a complete medical record before offering any recommendations on the issue of disability. But the buck stopped with the disability examiner. Yeah, the disability examiner was not required to accept Dr. Thrush's recommendation. He or she could have reviewed the incomplete medical record, if there is one, and called bullshit. I'm sorry. It was the disability examiner's duty to get a complete medical record again and again and again. Although we're not investigating the disability examiner, it was his duty, his or her duty, to get a complete medical record. So it appears we had an incompetent disability examiner and a 12-minute medical consultant. Maybe the disability examiner should have recognized the medical record was incomplete. That's his or her duty. If there was any question about Mr. Chrisman's medical records, the disability examiner could have called Mr. Chrisman or his doctors. Was that too much work? Was that too much to ask from a man fighting for his life against intestinal cancer? Instead, the disability examiner sent Mr. Chrisman a snarky, callous notice of disapproved claim 6 months after his application for Social Security. Not 6 weeks, not 6 days, 6 months. And during that 6 months, Mr. Chrisman couldn't appeal. He couldn't appeal because he didn't have a notice of disapproved claim. They didn't even give him a notice of disapproved claim from which he could appeal. Not even that snarky one. It took him 6 months to give him that. And that prevented Mr. Chrisman from requesting reconsideration. And it was reconsideration that granted Alan Chrisman Social Security disability 4 months later. Had he been able to request reconsideration earlier, he likely would have received Social Security disability much earlier. It was 10 months before his claim was approved. Mr. Chrisman had to fight for his life against late-stage intestinal cancer without any assistance from Social Security for 10 months. And even after he requested reconsideration, Disability Determination Services, with a new disability examiner and a new medical consultant, when you request reconsideration, you get a different disability examiner, you get a different medical consultant. But even with the new disability examiner and a new consultant, Disability Determination Services didn't bother to get Mr. Chrisman's medical records. You see, why I tell you in other videos when we discuss medical records, provide your medical records. Don't rely on Disability Determination Services. You can get your medical records. I know they send you that authorization to disclose information, but that's what we had in Alan Chrisman's case too. You can bet he signed that authorization to disclose information. They may have had the authorization, but they never asked for the information. Now, even after he requested reconsideration, Disability Determination Services didn't bother to get his medical records. According to the Tennessean, it was Mr. Chrisman's attorney who provided DDS, the hospital's discharge report. Well, that's your tax dollars at work, not to mention your payroll deductions for Social Security. How about all them lawyer jokes? Let's tell some more. This lawyer saved Alan Chrisman. Your government and all the money, everything paid into that trust, and all the money, and all these experts, two medical consultants and 2 different disability examiners, they don't do squat. This Social Security disability attorney gets hired and he gets the records. Just like I tell you, you get your medical records. Get your medical records, you provide them, that way you don't run into this. And here's a disturbing statistic. Unfortunately, not everyone survives the Social Security disability process. Here's a statistic from the investigation. In fiscal year 2017, at least 9,570 people died waiting for their disability appeals to be heard. Was that what they were doing in this case? Was the disability examiner and medical consultant just figuring, oh, he's got intestinal cancer, he's going to die, don't waste your time getting medical records and all that for a dead man, because he's going to die. Well, they were right 9,570 times. And why did USA Today and the Tennessean focus their investigation on Dr. Thrush? The Tennessean concluded that the disability examiner likely denied Mr. Chrisman because of Dr. Thrush's recommendation. According to other medical consultants, the Tennessean reported, although the decision to grant or deny benefits is officially made by the disability examiner, it's the medical consultant's recommendation that carries the most weight. Yeah, I guess I can see why, huh? Who is more worthless? The disability examiner who didn't get medical records, or the medical consultant that didn't tell him they were lacking medical records to make a recommendation? He couldn't make a recommendation. And it was the medical consultant that didn't bother to get the medical records either, although he had the authority to do so. They wouldn't even give the man a phone call. The investigation blamed Dr. Thomas E. Thrush for what it called a botched determination. And it could have investigated the disability examiner's negligence. I mean, it could have. I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, it was the disability examiner who made the actual decision that denied Alan Chrisman disability. So why did the Tennessean and USA Today investigate Dr. Thrush? They did so because we always follow the money. Did Dr. Thrush personally profit from his botched recommendation? Was money involved? The Tennessean and USA Today chose to follow the money. The investigation of Dr. Thrush led them to other medical consultants. It led them to a broken system, a system which incentivized incompetent medical reviews. And we'll follow the money in Broken System, Part 3, Payday. Thank you for watching the Disability Granted channel. If you believe the channel would benefit other disabled people, please share, like, and subscribe so they may watch it. Thank you again, and good luck.